taxpayers' money into a bankrupt poultry farm, saying it had been poorly managed and has the potential to save jobs. The country's latest asset manager today received a grilling from upset members of Parliament's Standing Committee on Finance over recent questionable transactions and alleged corrupt employee conduct. Daybreak Food has been flagged by the Auditor General for financial irregularities and governance failures, prompting MPs to probe whether public funds are being squandered on a failing enterprise. But the PIC said all corruption allegations related to the business have been reported to police. Lindsay Datelinger reports.
PIC CEO Patrick Dlamini says he's confident the PIC will be able to recover the more than R1 billion it's invested in the Daybreak poultry farm. He says the business rescue is on the hunt for a strategic equity partner and offers are expected by next week. Dlamini says the PIC has extended an additional R300 million to the company to allow 500 employees working in breeding and hatchery to retain their jobs.
And we are hoping that it will never take us back to its past and rather focus on becoming a sustainable and optimally run with optimal levels of governance.
Dlamini believes Daybreak Foods has the ability to fill the gap in the country's poultry market and that between 1,300 and 1,500 employees can be re-employed pending the reopening of the Delmas abattoir. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
Despite losing his bid for re-election as ANC leader in Johannesburg, the party has confirmed that Dada Morero will continue serving as the city's mayor. Morero was defeated at the ANC's elective conference, where he sought to retain his position as regional leader. He lost to Loyiso Masuku, who has now made history as the first woman to be elected ANC chairperson in Johannesburg. Alpha Ramushwana has more.
While Dada Morero is no longer the leader of the ANC in Johannesburg, the party's new leaders say they see no need for him to step down as the mayor of the City of Gold. In ANC tradition, a regional chairperson is automatically made the mayor of their respective municipality. However, newly elected ANC chairperson in Johannesburg, Loyiso Masuku, says the issue of who becomes the mayor in a metro is only decided by national ANC officials.
Any discussion on any process of mayoral candidates is actually the competence of the national office bearers. It is not even in our purview to discuss such particular matters. And so we're very clear in our mind. We are here to serve residents of Joburg. We are here to work collectively to unite and renew the African National Congress.
With the local government elections coming up, the ANC will soon begin the process of selecting mayoral candidates. Alpha Ramshwana, Eyewitness News in Sandton.
Dr. Nandipha Makutumana's lawyer wants a full report detailing why correctional services officials delayed in picking her up and transporting her to court this morning. Makutumana, her alleged accomplice, convicted killer Thabo Bester, and 5 others appeared in the Free State High Court today in their prison break case. But Makutumana made a brief appearance separately. The doctor is accused of being part of Bester's escape from the Mangaung private prison in 2022 and was arrested with him in Tanzania the following year. Khomotso Modise has more.
Dr. Nandipha Makutumana was late for her court appearance today and as a result had to appear alone before Judge Marina Opperman. Her lawyer, Machini Mutlowung, told the court the delay was on the part of correctional services.
Normally, she is ready to be taken to court at 6 o'clock. So she's been up since then till 9 o'clock when they arrived to take her to court.
But prosecutor Amanda Bester told the court that the investigating officer takes full responsibility for the delay as he forgot to have a female official to sign Makutumana out of the Kroonstad prison. Makutumana's lawyer was not satisfied with this explanation.
For fairness and for proper administration of justice, it is quite prudent that we should have a full report.
As she stood in the dock with a Bible and several books in hand, Makutumana was informed that the matter is postponed to March. Khomotso Modise, Eyewitness News at the Free State High Court.
And streaming giant Netflix is a top bidder to buy TV and film group Warner Bros. Discovery. The parent company of HBO, CNN, and the Warner Bros. Film Studio put itself up for sale in October after receiving multiple offers. According to reports, the companies are moving through a crucial stage in the negotiation process. The deal could bulk up Netflix content production capabilities and secure premium assets like HBO and Warner Bros. Studios. In your financials, gold is trading at $4,244.55 an ounce. The rand is 16.92 to the dollar, 22.58 to the pound, and 19.71 to the euro. Brent crude oil is $63.61 a barrel.
In your sport, Rassie Erasmus extends his contract until 2031. Orlando Pirates looking to add a second trophy of the season to their cabinet. And Australia on top after day 2 of the second Ashes Test.
A partly cloudy Saturday is in store for Gauteng tomorrow, with afternoon showers and thunder showers expected. Johannesburg drops to an overnight low of 13 degrees, peaking at 27. Pretoria 14 and 29. Vereeniging 14 and 28. Cape Town can expect clear skies with a fresh to strong south to southeasterly at a low of 19 and a high of 26 degrees. The top story on EWN this hour: the Public Investment Corporation has defended pumping taxpayers' money into a bankrupt poultry farm, saying it had been poorly managed and has the potential to save jobs.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. EWN Traffic.
Happening in traffic this afternoon, there's a crash on the R21 southbound before Olifantsfontein Road, 2 lanes closed to traffic there. A bit of a crash on the N1 southbound before Rivonia Road, and the right lane is affected. You can expect delays in that area. We got reports in of heavy rains in the area of Grootvlei, so please keep a safe following distance and switch on your headlights in that particular area. If you're in Cape Town this weekend, the Cape Town Sevens is taking place at the stadium. You can expect road closures and delays in and around the Greenpoint vicinity, and then traffic lights faulty in the CBD in Cape Town at Vanguard Estate, at Heideveld Road and Jakes Calville Road. If you're out in Johannesburg, the traffic lights that are down is in Bramley at Corlett and Scots, and in Sunninghill at Rivonia Road and Witkoppen.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB. Discover the latest trends shaping digital assets across Africa. Download the ABSA Africa Digital Assets Insights 2025. Good evening. Welcome to the Friday edition of The Money Show, 8 minutes after 6. I'm Stephen Grootes. Plenty to come. Just listening to the EWN News Bulletin about the PIC defending the investment in Daybreak Farms. And I'm just reminded of so many of the conversations we had when it became so clear what was happening at Daybreak Farms, and particularly the reporting of Sabelo Skiti, the amazing reporting of Sabelo Skiti, who just kept pointing out that, you know, he had run these stories, and the PIC did nothing. And now they say, well, it was badly managed. Yes, but you knew, is kind of the point. I'm sure that was pointed out to them by MPs. The unlisted portfolio of the PIC still, I think, is going to just be a controversial issue for quite some time to come. We'll talk ratings agency and Moody's in a moment. George Glinos from ETM Analytics. Look, we're expecting an announcement from Moody's at some point tonight. Often these things are kind of 11 o'clock at night. It's all predicated on sort of New York time. George will know more than I, but I think no one's really expecting an upgrade, even though we did get one from S&P Global, but we'll hear from George Glinos on that in just a moment. A lot of confidence around from farmers at the moment, mainly because of the rains we've seen across most of the country. The Agricultural Business Chamber Chief Economist Wandile Seklobo due to be on your radio in about 10 minutes from now. I know plenty of people who live in the interior of the country, or Joburg, and you say to them, where are you going on the holiday? And they'll almost always say the coast if they're not going home to Limpopo or maybe to the Eastern Cape or KZN. They'll say, no, I'm going to the coast. And almost immediately after that, they'll start to complain about the cost of accommodation. And that's because short-term rentals on the coast now have skyrocketed. I mean, there's clearly a market for it. We'll talk to Grant Smee from the Only Realty Property Group about that tonight. And then Marble, the hospitality group, really have been growing very strongly. They've got a nice sort of little group of companies going in that sort of Jan Smuts area of Rosebank in Joburg. They're now looking to add to a hotel to that. There's quite a lot of accommodation in that area already, so looking forward to that conversation. Good to hear from you tonight. 011 883 0702 021 446 0567, and of course voice notes on 072 702 1702. Don't forget, by the way, in about 50 minutes or so from now, 45 minutes or so, the Friday Biz Blitz.
The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app
and DSTV channel 856.
Well, later tonight, the ratings agency Moody's expected to issue an update to our credit rating, currently below investment grade. Of course, there was the decision by S&P Global to give us our first upgrade in 20 years, quite recently, but in both cases, we still are below investment grade. George Glinos is the head of research at ETM Analytics. George, good evening to you. Do you have any expectations from Moody's tonight? I think it doesn't seem that there's much expectation there'll be a change.
Hi, Stephen. Yeah, I think it's more an affirmation that South Africa is moving in a better direction, and I think that's what we're looking out for. So, just for context, that S&P upgrade that we got was more of a catch up to where Moody's already was. So I think it's more of that was more of an alignment to where the other ratings agencies were. And so I think Moody's is reasonably placed. They moved a little bit ahead of S&P in terms of nudging the ratings upward. But I think more interesting than that for me is going to be the context that they paint to future decisions. And that's going to be about the improvement of South Africa's fiscal space, whether or not they have confidence in National Treasury and the Department of Finance turning around South Africa's debt trajectory. The market certainly is giving them the benefit of the doubt, because if I look at bond yields, they've come down tremendously. And I mean, it's really good news to see that happening. It does mean that foreigners are buying into that story. So now we need to see proof. We're looking for action. We're looking for the authorities to do what they need to do to make sure that they reach the kind of targets and promises that they've put out there. And I think if they do that, and we've got positive outlooks from both S&P, Moody's, and maybe even Fitch, then I think we can start talking about the potential for another upgrade next year.
I mean, obviously, presumably, we can argue about the sort of this element and that element, but if a country is trending in a particular direction, you would expect the ratings agencies, you'd expect all of them to reflect that eventually, whether it's down or up.
Well, exactly right. And I mean, this has been a good year. Say what you like about the GNU and whether it's fractious and, difficult to always see it as a smooth coalition, but it's held together. And holding it together has also seems to have improved accountability to some degree. At the same time, there's been a lot of effort on the part of National Treasury and other departments to get us off the grey list. That was another really big move. And even if we have a look at the data that came out yesterday in the form of the current account data, you see a country that's living within its means, that doesn't require hefty borrowing from abroad to plug any of the deficits. These all speak to a sustainability, which is important. So, if you get the message right and follow that up with some action to rein in that fiscal expenditure, which at one point just seemed to be out of political control, then if you can get that right and the market buys into it, you can kickstart a virtuous cycle. And it may be a little premature for me to call it that, but I am seeing the green shoots of a virtuous cycle. And you can see that in the way that bond yields have performed, the way the JSE's done a whole lot better, and the way that the Rand's performing at the moment as well.
Isn't it really, I mean, what we really need to see and what surely would change the ratings is growth. If we get, say, 2% growth rather than kind of 1 and 1.1% a year, that, I presume, changes everything.
So I think it's a mix. You need to try and achieve that growth while at the same time ensuring that you've got enough fiscal discipline that you don't allow a government to spend too aggressively. Ideally, the way that you would achieve that is by allowing or crowding in the private sector into a lot of these network industries, which is what is happening at the moment. That's what Operation Vulindlela's about. So I think if we gain some traction on that front and rely more heavily on the private sector to generate some of that GDP growth, whilst at the same time just keeping a control, keeping a lid on wasteful expenditure and extracting efficiencies, that can go a long, long way to just boosting that GDP growth that you're talking about, whilst at the same time containing the the debt trajectory. And you get that right, then investment grade becomes a possibility. Up until now, that's been very difficult to come by, and it's been frustrating to sit on the sidelines looking in, understanding where the positive dynamics lie and watching a government not doing it. But I think we've gotten ourselves to a point where quite literally the government ran out of money and had to think about things differently. And almost as a result of that, I think we have now been nudged in the right direction. And I think it's starting to show up not just in the markets, but in the ratings upgrade as well.
The benefits of an open system does push reform in the end. George Glenos, thanks very much. Head of Research at ETM Analytics, 16 minutes after 6.
7:02. Stephen is on The Money Show.
6 to 8 p.m.
More data out today showing how farmers are pretty confident about the future. The AgBiz IDC Agribusiness Confidence Index rising quite strongly. Wandile Seklobo is the chief economist at the Agricultural Business Chamber. Wandile, good evening. A very wet November, if I may say, sitting here in my Johannesburg studio. I presume that's one of the reasons farmers are so confident.
Stephen, rain brings grain. So that very wet November is helping us a great deal. Grain farmers, oilseed farmers, fruit, as well as the vegetable ones, they've had a good season. And I'm talking now about the 2024-25 production season. But even now, looking ahead, 25-26, it looks like things will be good for us. And Stephen, we are also going to be embarking on vaccinating 12 million head of cattle across this country. And I think the news just of that, because foot and mouth disease has been an issue, it added to this optimism. So things are looking fairly well, and the sentiment is quite a bit in the sector.
How important have vaccines been? Because for some time it seemed we didn't have any. We had to get it from Botswana. And I've heard some frustration that it's been a bit slow.
It had been slow, Stephen, but what this crisis brought to bear was the fact that we needed to kickstart our own vaccination capabilities, because it's not like we don't know how to do these things, but we lost the capacity during the state capture. Now, at the Agricultural Research Council and OBP, we're kickstarting that, but also the conversation and the imports from Botswana continue, but also we'll look in other areas, Turkey and others, to ensure that they assist us in this effort. That's just one part, and I think it's important that we talk about it because livestock is about half of our farming economy. But Stephen, you put that aside and you say the folks in fruit, in grain farming, in oilseeds, how have they been doing? We had the second largest maize crop on record, a record soybean crop, and various fruits also did well. And our ports showed a bit of a improvement in efficiency. I was just listening to you and kind of speaking now where you were talking about Operation Vulindlela. Those gains that he was mentioning is what actually assisted us, because we are just looking at another data point, the first 3 quarters of this year in terms of agricultural exports. And Stephen, we are up 10% at about $13.7 billion. And I think for 2025, our agricultural exports will cross $14 billion for the first time. So a really good period so far.
Rain brings grain. Does it lessen the financial pain? Our food prices are internationalized. Doesn't always mean that we'll get lower food prices.
It's good to be a consumer today, Stephen, because even internationally, there is a record wheat crop. Global grain prices are also down to an extent that if you look at the grain prices today, maize prices, they are down roughly 30% from a year ago. So this moderating path on food price inflation that we have been seeing, it's something that we think will continue into the next year. But of course, for the farmers, it does also mean that that cooling of the commodity prices reduces the possibilities for profit. So making sure that the guys get better yields is something that they will need to focus on. But in this country, Stephen, contrary to some that say there are bad things happening in farming, farmers are actually planning and doing so well, and I think that they will be able to cope with some of these difficulties.
Wandile Seklobo, always good to hear from you. Thanks so much. Wandile Seklobo is the chief economist at the Agricultural Business Chamber.
The Money Show Explainer.
I don't know if you spent any time looking for a place to stay at the coast over the Christmas period. If you're going home over December, you're probably staying with family or in your real home. But if you're going on holiday, you're likely to spend a fortune, particularly, the obvious place would be Plettenberg Bay, some towns in KZN, some places in the Eastern Cape. Grant Smee is the CEO of the Only Realty Property Group. Grant, good evening. I hear stories over this time of year. This guy goes and takes his family and camps in a tent in a field at the edge of town, rents out his house, makes a fortune. Are those kinds of stories true?
I think it's a bit of an exaggeration in terms of just dumping a tent in the middle of nowhere, but I think a lot of people do take advantage of the festive season to increase or provide short-term accommodation to vacationers and make some money while they're on holiday.
What happens to short-term rental pricing? I presume it jumps the moment that someone mentions the name December.
So absolutely, it jumps, particularly in the coastal regions as well as areas around the Kruger National Park, where it's really attractive for people to commute from Gauteng and have a bit of a holiday. So those coastal regions, like you said, Plettenberg Bay, Cape Town, even the north coast of KZN, those prices really do jump during December and January.
I would imagine it really helps some people finance their homes. They're able to make a lot of money over the Christmas period. You rent it out for a month, 2 weeks, and 2 weeks, for example, to 2 different people. It could certainly make a huge dent in your bond.
Absolutely. I think, there's lots of stories out there where people have certainly taken advantage of the festive season bump and made a lot of money and in excess, or in some stories, of their entire mortgage payments for the entire year. So there is a big opportunity for people with suitable accommodation in the right areas to make a lot of money in the short term.
Are people looking now at buying properties with this in mind, thinking, well, I would not have been able to afford a property otherwise, but now the demand is so great that actually I'll be able to make enough that I'll be able to make this work?
Definitely. I think, short-term letting as an opportunity and short-term letting properties have become its own investment class in the property sector. And people are certainly looking at properties, looking at the short-term yields that can be or achieved, and looking at buying properties that really are entirely focused on the short-term market.
Which are the big hotspots? Everyone tells me it's Plettenberg Bay. I presume there are others.
Yeah, absolutely. Plettenberg Bay, the garden route is certainly popular. Cape Town goes without saying that the Atlantic Seaboard and CBD are really, really popular, as well as the west coast of Cape Town. So that Blouberg area is really, really popular. But then you've got areas, Menlyn and Sandton still remain interesting for professional travellers. And then you've got the north coast again of KZN, Belito, and north of that is very, very popular and getting more popular over time.
Who's coming in to sort of use all of this property? Obviously there'll be some people from Gauteng, but are you also finding there's a big international market?
Certainly. Again, the digital nomad sort of movement is massive. And this is particularly for Cape Town. There's a huge movement for digital nomads, and that's all year round, which is a big advantage for short term. And then, Gautengers and professionals that are looking to stay in properties that are more homely versus staying in hotels. So I think there's a combination of different users of that, and that's important for short-term investors to focus on a diverse market to make sure they can maximize returns.
Are you expecting this to continue growing? There must be some limit somewhere.
Yeah, so I think, again, Cape Town's got 29,000 Airbnb units. So I think there's a limitation on where we can go there. But there's big opportunities in other regions where it's taken time or adoption has taken a bit of time. So I do think there's a massive growth opportunity. The one limiting factor could be regulations coming into the market. So the city of Cape Town itself and other municipalities will be looking at limiting and regulating short-term letting. And I think that's one thing that we're going to have to watch carefully to make sure that they aren't over-regulating that market and limiting the opportunity for short-term investors.
Certainly in Cape Town, my sense of the sentiment is that there's a lot of anger moving against the sort of Airbnb crowd simply because it's pricing Cape Townians out of their own city.
Yeah, so the short-term market certainly has, especially in the high season, prices people out and pushes long-term rentals through the roof. It also impacts the property values because short-term yields are so much higher. It makes properties really attractive to investors, and they're willing to pay a premium. So it definitely is having an impact, but I think the economic benefit to the city and individuals in the city also must be counted into that, where although locals are being priced out of the market, it's bringing massive economic activity to that market. So again, that sort of speaks to the balance between economic benefit and regulation or potential over-regulation.
I mean, it's so interesting to sort of watch all of this play out. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some international investors buying property in Cape Town because they can start quite small in rand currency terms and build up a really big portfolio.
Yeah, I think the Atlantic Seaboard in particular has always been framed as a big foreign buyer market, whereas last year only 4% of properties in that area were bought by foreign buyers. So that does mean you're right that there's a massive growth curve potential for foreign buyers to come into the market using the strength of the currency with the high yields and coming into that space. So that's why one of the reasons why I think Cape Town prices haven't stopped increasing, and they're going to continue increasing for the foreseeable future.
Grant Smith, thanks very much, CEO of the Only Realty Property Group.
The Money Show.
The markets.
Grant Nader is Portfolio Manager, Benguela Global Fund Managers. Grant, good evening. News out of Dis-Chem, Ivan Saltzman. He's been running the company since 1978. He's still Executive Director. He'll no longer be an Executive Director, but will become a non-exec next year. He's had such a good run at Dis-Chem.
Yeah, indeed. Good evening, Stephen. I mean, it's really amazing the business they've built from a small family business. They've built it up, corporatized it, put structures in place, and they continue to grow and continue to roll out expansion plans. Of course, his sons are still involved. The family's still very much involved. But, it takes a big person to step away from your baby that you've built up over all these years. So massive respect to him and the family. And we need these kind of entrepreneurs in South Africa. So really a great story to tell there.
I wonder what he'll do with the time.
And the money.
And the precious metals still looking quite strong. I mean, gold, we've discussed the sort of gold rally, in such depth. I mean, a new gold mine opened in the Witwatersrand this week. And yet it still really matters, and there still seems to be so much consistent power behind it.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite phenomenal. And there's clearly a lot of different demand drivers for gold and platinum. The PGM is obviously a very different story, what's driving them. But, gold, I think there's a fundamental shift away from the dollar. And, of course, the dollar is such a big part of the global economy that it doesn't take a lot to move the needle in gold. And so there's this perpetual bid. We've got continuing diversification away from the rest of the world. And, of course, you're seeing it play out in markets as well, in my opinion. And it's not just a gold story. It's really just gold is the easiest reflection of the greater geopolitical, split that's taking place.
The rand consistently now for the last 24 hours below 17 rand to the dollar, 17.92, I think last time I checked. Obviously, there's a little bit of dollar weakness, but we heard last night a lot of it actually is our good story.
Exactly. I mean, I think we cannot underestimate the rand strength here. So the rand has strengthened against all major currencies, not as much as against the dollar, which has been obviously a weak currency this year. But the rand we've got a good story to tell. The long bond, the 10-year, has moved from 11.30 and roughly 11.30 at the start of this year to now around 8.30. That's a 3% move. The cost of or the saving on 3% on your debt is unbelievable. So it's a massive sentiment shift. It's very positive for the economic outlook. It talks to a strong terms of trade supported by all of these commodity prices. And it's good for the banking sector. The cost of borrow for them goes down, which then feeds through into the broader economy. So there's a positive knock-on effect. And hopefully we see that continue. And even if you look at the market under the surface, yes, the metals are getting all the limelight, the gold, the platinum. But under the surface, you're seeing new highs in the banks. You're seeing new highs in the insurers. There's definitely demand, a positive sentiment feeding through into the broader South African, or at least in the financial services sector, because that's your first transmission mechanism of these macro factors.
We heard earlier, no one's really expecting a sort of ratings upgrade from Moody's tonight, really in the commentary. But I mean, going into it, there is some momentum, and there was quite a good bond auction today, it seems.
Yeah, very strong bond auction. The 3.5 billion euro bond auction, very well supported. And it does, again, talk to the positive sentiment. And I think, what's really encouraging is there's a broader emerging market mood swing out there. People are looking for returns that are strong in dollars, and you're getting that outside of the US. And I think there's still a long way to go in this journey. Despite the massive move we've had this year, 37% in our market, the SA stocks are still cheap. There's plenty of room to run if we see this momentum continue. And of course, another upgrade, or even just talking about an upgrade, it knocks on into the confidence of the business sector. They then start to open the purse, maybe invest a little more. The government infrastructure plans are starting to take root, and this becomes a virtuous cycle. So I'm optimistic. I think it's a slow grind, but I think we're moving in the right direction, and we're seeing it first represented in the currency and the bonds.
Grant Nader, thanks very much indeed. Portfolio Manager, Benguela Global Fund Managers. Bringing the time to 6:30. Time for the latest Eyewitness News. And Gisa, good evening, and more stories about what happened in the DRC.
Well, Stephen, it seems Parliament has heard how some of the South African National Defence Force soldiers deployed in the Democratic Republic of Congo had to buy their own boots and bed frames to sleep. Generals in the SANDF briefed members of Parliament's Joint Defence Committee today. The Joint Committee was discussing a report by the SANDF on the state of preparedness for any future deployment for peacekeeping in the DRC. Members of the committee, as well as Deputy Minister Bantu Holomisa, slammed the army generals for failing to prepare adequately for today's meeting. Babalondenze reports.
The committee today received a report by the SANDF on the state of preparedness for any future deployments for peacekeeping in the DRC. The Defence Force also informed members that the strength of the South African battalion in the DRC has been greatly reduced due to funding challenges with the United Nations peacekeeping globally. Committee co-chairperson Malusi Kigaba listed some of the challenges facing South African soldiers.
From what we understand, our soldiers had to buy their own boots, traveled without bulletproof vests, which only arrived when they were already there. They had to buy their own bed frames, their own tents.
The Joint Committee has requested to have a follow-up meeting with Minister Angie Motshekga present to get more details on the peacekeeping deployment. Babalo Ndenze, Eyewitness News.
There are renewed calls for more police visibility outside the country's court buildings following a spate of deadly shootings in Cape Town recently. Police are probing a double murder outside the Athlone Magistrate Court on Tuesday. In August, a man was shot dead and another injured outside the Mitchells Plain Magistrate Court. 5 suspects will be going on trial soon for their involvement in a brazen fatal shooting inside the Wynberg Magistrate Court in April. Senior researcher at Judges Matter, Mbegezeli Benjamin, says security needs to be beefed up in and around courts.
It does require that the South African Police Service in the Western Cape intensify their patrols and other security measures around court buildings. This is an incident that the police do need to pay close attention to.
Athlone CPF chairperson Vernon Peet says communities also need to play a role in exposing those involved in these attacks.
We have to have also a greater interaction more with courts and the police to make sure things like this doesn't happen.
Cape Town Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis says the adoption of the city's business plan to take over the rail system from the national government is a huge milestone. The City Council has given the mayor the go-ahead to approach the national government to begin the process to devolve passenger rail to the metro. Widespread theft of copper cables and vandalism of infrastructure as well as train carriages have crippled parts of the network. Passenger rail agency PRASA is reviving the city's rail network through its Central Line Recovery Project and has already reopened services to sections of Khayelitsha and Mitchells Plain. Hill-Lewis says Cape Townians deserve a more affordable and reliable public transport service.
Devolution is one of the critical first steps in the long-term vision to massively scale up passenger numbers and see many more Cape Townians using public transport with new train sets, new routes, upgraded stations, and to develop those station precincts with affordable housing around them over the years ahead.
And social media platform TikTok says it will comply with Australia's ban on under-16s joining social media. From December 10th, Australia will introduce one of the world's toughest social media policies for children, with companies facing fines of up to $33 million if they fail to take reasonable steps to stop under-16s from having accounts. TikTok will ban the teens on the day and says those with existing accounts will be notified that they will no longer be able to use them. The social media giant says youngsters who have been blocked can submit an appeal to prove their age, including by facial images, credit card authorization, or official ID. And in your weather, a partly cloudy Saturday is in store for Gauteng tomorrow, with afternoon showers and thundershowers expected. Lows of between 13 and 14 degrees, as well as highs of between 27 and 29. Cape Town can expect clear skies at a low of 19 and a high of 26. The top story in EWN. Parliament has heard how some of the South African National Defence Force soldiers deployed in the Democratic Republic of Congo had to buy their own boots and bed frames to sleep.
EWN Traffic.
Happening in traffic this evening, there's a crash on the R21 southbound before Olifantsfontein Road. You've got 2 lanes closed to traffic, and that's backing up traffic in the area. Bit of a crash on the N1 southbound before Rivonia Road, and the right lane is affected in that area. Some heavy rains in the vicinity of Grootvlei, so keep a safer following distance and switch on your headlights. The Cape Town Sevens taking place this weekend at the Cape Town Stadium. You can expect some road closures and delays in and around the Greenpoint vicinity, and then traffic signals faulty in Cape Town is at Vanguard Estate at Heideveld Road and Jakes Gerwel Drive. The traffic lights out in the Johannesburg area in Paulshof at Witkoppen and Main Road, and in Bramley you've got Corlett and Scotts Road, that's out. If you're travelling out in Tshwane, a few more traffic lights that are faulty at Botha and the N1, and then Kwagga and Trans-Oranje Road, those traffic lights are also out. I'm Zane Johnson. More Eyewitness News traffic at 7 o'clock.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us, because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Sure, your phone's from there. Your kids' toys? Definitely. But your SUV? No thanks. The Mini Countryman. From 9,899 Rand per month with Mini Select Finance. Visit mini.co.za to book your test drive. Select offer only available from Mini Financial Services, a division of BMW Financial Services South Africa Pty Limited, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider. Offer exclusively applies to the Mini Countryman. Initiation and service fee apply. Offer linked to the current prime rate, calculated on a 10% deposit, 48 monthly installments, final GFV payment, and 80,000 kilometer contract limit. Changes to the deal and optional extras will impact finance offer. Offer valid until 31 December, subject to stock availability. T's and C's apply.
Those trusty old shoes. There for your first move out of home. That marathon training that lasted a day, the quick runs to the store, the long nights out. Yeah, they've done the most for you. But with the Street Store, they can do even more for someone else. Visit thestreetstore.org to find out more about donating your pre-loved shoes and clothes to the world's first rent-free pop-up clothing store for the homeless. Donate before December 6, 2025.
WhatsApp Stephen
On 072
702
1702.
Well, good to hear from you tonight. News coming out of the US that Netflix is buying Warner Brothers. And this is part of a much bigger shift that we're seeing in the United States in the entertainment industry there. Don't worry, I'll get to why it matters to you in a moment. Because we've seen consolidation, we've seen other deals going through involving Skydance. Occasionally, these lead to political fights because sometimes the US regulators have to approve the deal or the merger. That gives the Trump administration's person at the FCC, the sort of Federal Communications Commission, a little bit of power, and he uses it, and he's not shy to use it, and we've seen all of that. But what it does mean is that it might well affect what you get to watch on your phone. And I say this because Netflix, obviously, if they're buying all of that content and they're buying HBO Max's content as well, well, then it could well come to a phone near you. And at the same time, one of the sort of things I'll be looking for in kind of January, February next year is what comes out of Canal Plus. There are all sorts of issues they have actually with Warner Brothers as it happens. They're going to take CNN and some of the other channels off from the 1st of January. They haven't reached an agreement. But more than that is that Canal Plus, we know, the new owners of DSTV, have said they basically think there needs to be a revamp of the offering from DSTV. They've been offering lots of special deals. If you get, I think it's the compact or one of the sort of lower priced packages, you get the full premium price for premium package for free. That's not sustainable because eventually premium people will sort of go down and you'll lose revenue. What I'm looking forward to next year is what bundles they offer and whether they include Netflix. What that would mean then, according to them, is you would have one app, which would be a sort of DSTV Canal Plus app. You get Netflix content on there, and suddenly all of that Warner Brothers material starts to come back. There's a lot going on in this industry at the moment, and I'd watch it very closely if I were you.
EWN Sport.
Well, obviously the biggest business story of the day was Rassie Erasmus, but the other things have happened since then.
It's been a very, very busy day,
Yeah,
Stephen.
yeah.
You have no idea. The Proteas women have won their opening T20 clash against Ireland by 105 runs. With a report from Newlands, here's Kieran Thompson.
The South African bowlers were pretty tidy in defence of their 220-run total, giving away just 8 extras. The spinners did most of the damage with the ball, as Sunay Lees finished with figures of 4 wickets for 22 runs in her 4 overs. Chloe Tryon and Nonkululeko Mlaba picked up 2 wickets apiece as the Proteas cruised to a 105-run win with 2 overs to spare. South Africa head into Sunday's second T20 International in Paarl with a series win in sight. Kieran Thompson, Eyewitness News Sport, Newlands Cricket Ground.
The Carling knockout final tomorrow sees Orlando Pirates up against Marumo Gallants. Adeslam Modu says it's too soon to judge the work that he's doing with the Buccaneers, even though he has a chance to win a second trophy just 8 months into the job.
I'd like to thank my players, to thank my staff, first of all, to thank the club, because it's a collective work. I always say that we are getting result all together. It's too early to judge this work, but I just can tell you that we are aligned with the targets of the club, and we are doing our job. That's it, and we will continue to work hard in order to reach targets for the club and for our fans as well.
The second round of the Nedbank Golf Challenge is concluded and Christopher Retton has maintained his lead. Lennox Wasara has a day 2 update from Sun City.
Christopher Rayton kept the pressure firmly on the field at Sun City as he signed for a composed second round 69 to move to 12 under par and hold a one-shot lead heading into the weekend. For most of the day, the Norwegian was in full control, collecting 5 birdies and looking comfortably at ease around the Gary Player Country Club. His rhythm was briefly shaken by back-to-back bogeys on the 15th and the 16th, but a closing birdie on the 18th, one of the toughest scoring holes for the entire 66-man field, ensured he remained out and front. South African fans were given plenty to cheer for as Christian Bazerno surged up the leaderboard with a brilliant 7 under 65. He is now 3 off the pace at 9 under par. Lennox Wasara, Eyewitness News Sport, Sun City.
And Stephen, your favorite story of the day, SA Rugby have announced that Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has extended his contract for a further 4 years until 2031.
Sorry, All Blacks.
Erasmus
and
is
France.
Everybody
and
in Ireland.
England, and World Rugby.
Erasmus is a former Park captain and was first appointed as director of rugby back in 2018. And under his guidance, South Africa have won successive World Cups in 2019 and 2023. At the same time, history will be made during next year's greatest rivalry, with confirmation that the Springbok women will meet the Black Ferns for the first time on South African soil. The historic encounter will form part of a doubleheader at the FNB Stadium on the 5th of September. That's before the Springboks and the All Blacks run out in the third test of the series.
They should have done that years ago. I mean, we should have been doing that for 20 years, the women before, and mix them all together, have them at the same venue.
We'll give them a small clap for finally getting it right when all eyes will literally be on South Africa. And McLaren's Lando Norris set the pace in Friday practice at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix ahead of Max Verstappen by 0.363 seconds, with Oscar Piastri 11th fastest. Norris goes into the weekend knowing that he'll win the title as long as he finishes on the podium, regardless of anyone else's results, while Verstappen needs to win the race with Norris lower than 3rd or be 2nd with him lower than 7th. Tola Gilemganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
The Money Show. The Friday File. The Friday File.
16 minutes to 7. If you've spent any time driving through Rosebank in Joburg, you'll know how big a presence the Marble Group has become. One of the major arteries, Jan Smuts Avenue, is the Pantry. There's a petrol station that sells, well, I suppose anything that's pretty much high end. Behind it, sort of above it really, Marble the restaurant. The few times I've been there, I've basically seen the elite of Joburg's business scene. There are other outlets, of course. And now the group has plans to build a brand new hotel at the Olympus in Sandton. Dino Constantiu is the operations manager for the Marble Group. Dino, good evening and so much thanks for your time. I know Friday's a busy time for you guys. We've seen you doing well in Cape Town and Joburg, particularly in food and restaurants. Now a hotel. What informs the idea behind building a new hotel?
Yeah, Stephen, thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be on the show. I mean, you'd think we're busy enough, so, we're just adding all this extra pressure. But I think a hotel is, it's the pinnacle of hospitality. And when the opportunity comes along to do something like this in a building like the Olympus in Sandton, it is very, very hard to say no to it. Big challenge, but a challenge that we're very excited to take on. So, yeah, interesting.
I mean, one of the things that your other operations, your other outlets do is they manage to stand out a little bit from the crowd. There are competitors in sort of the high market, the sort of high end of the market. How do you intend to do that with hotels? There are plenty of other hotels in Sandton, as I'm sure you're aware.
Yes. So, I think just like the restaurants, when we first opened Marble, going on to almost 10 years ago now, we stepped into a space, obviously highly competitive. And the idea from the get-go was, what do we do different to everyone else? And I think the restaurants gave us that platform to show people proper hospitality, consistent hospitality, and that extends far further than just food. It's the entire experience. And I think when you think of hotels, there again is that opportunity on how do you take the current landscape of hotels in Joburg and in Sandton and just sort of elevate that and give the level of service that I think we've become quite good at in the restaurants. And, taking that kind of secret sauce and applying it to restaurants. Obviously, there's all this, the design and making a beautiful space. I mean, that's almost a given. That's sort of what we do. But I definitely think it's that hospitality element that we're going to bring to the hotel space that'll make us different to everyone else.
I mean, it's interesting to hear you talk about that. It's the way that you are greeted by the person who gets the lift for you when you arrive at the restaurant. But in the hotel, there are a lot more people doing a lot more things. I mean, I realize restaurants at your end of the market are big operations. I get that. They employ a lot of people. But hotels, I would imagine, probably more.
Well, you're actually making me nervous now that you say that. I haven't. You know what? I think you're right. Absolutely. You're looking after guests, international guests on their stay. There's a lot more involved with it. But I think when you break it down in the simplest form, you're trying to give these people and these guests a home away from home. And if you can get that right, and you've just nailed it, it's from making the reservation to your arrival to how the room looks and how the room is kept. And I think even before you arrive, reaching out to the guests and getting their preferences on what they want stocked in their minibar and going as far as to asking them, what kind of pillow do you prefer to sleep on, So definitely complex, but a challenge that I think we are very much up for and probably experienced enough to hopefully pull it off.
What kind of traveller are you going to be aiming for? I mean, I would imagine in Sandton you're probably looking at the international traveller, maybe someone from Durban, maybe there's a bit of a maybe someone from Cape Town, maybe there's a bit of a market from Durban, but mostly international?
I would say so, yes, absolutely. It's tricky, being in a building like that, you automatically sort of, categorized as a business sort of traveller or business hotel. And we actually, our initial conversations and the idea was to try and steer away from that. So you don't want to be put into a box and say, this is only for business travelers. We want to sort of cater for everyone. Obviously, it is probably going to lean more towards that kind of a traveler. But your international guests, I think of guys arriving in Joburg from overseas. Cape Town has a plethora of options, really. There's you can't really, there's just way too many. But in Joburg, yes, there is a few. There's some great ones. But I really think in Sandton Central, exactly where we are, there isn't really anybody offering what we are going to do there.
I do want to talk about some of your other businesses because I find them very interesting. I mean, there are plenty of places to get a pizza in Joburg on a Saturday night. But I sort of joked to my son, if you want to go and see smart cars, if you want to go and see a Maserati, probably drive past the pantry at about sort of midnight on a Saturday, and you'll probably see one. People do seek you out. What do you think the secret to that is?
That's the $1 million question. I think sometimes we don't even know ourselves, to be honest. I know that sounds like a silly answer, but the reality is I think, if you're giving people a high-end experience, an experience where they can see the effort that's gone into it, whether it's the cleanliness, the preparation, the freshness of the food, the general vibe and the atmosphere of a place, which that's actually the hardest thing to get right, is getting that atmosphere that people want to, pantry, people come to grab an ice cream and they land up wandering around the store for 45 minutes, just browsing. And, it is difficult to get right. And I think we've just got this sort of secret sauce when it comes from, it is, I've got to go back to that hospitality element and, the way you're being treated by the staff, the way they interact with you. I think that's everything, to be honest.
The 24-hour nature of it, is that a factor? I mean, the sort of consistency over 24 hours does require quite a lot of execution. You need to have a lot of staff. You need to be able to, if someone's off or feeling ill, you need to be able to back them up. But if you do that and people know, I mean, it's a bit like the Woolworths model. If people know it's going to be good, they're going to buy their avos from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the 24-hour concept, obviously very difficult to run. It gets tricky. 3-4 a.m. in the morning, who's there, what are they doing? It does get tricky, but I think that is also our niche. And I go sometimes on the cameras at 3 a.m. and just check the sheer volume of people that are in that store. And a lot of people say to me, oh, it's the people coming from the parties. And the strange thing is, it's not only those people. There's so many tradesmen and people that work random hours that know they're going to come to pantry at 3 a.m. and grab a pizza and some groceries. So definitely tricky. I think it's worked exceptionally well in Rosebank from a business model perspective. And the fact that, we're attached to a petrol station does help. The other pantries that we've now opened in Pretoria, Hazelwood, Besonia in the south of Joburg, which we're opening in January, the new year, they're standalone stores. They're not part of petrol stations, and those are not 24 hours. And they close at 12, which is still quite late. But yeah, Rosebank's a special one, if I'm honest.
Yeah, no, and I mean, that bicycle's been there forever. Are you seeing different trends in the sector? And I mean, where I'm really going to with this is, I think before the pandemic, Joburg was slowly looking towards maybe becoming one of the world's 24-hour cities. Never really been, I think, a truly 24-hour city. The pandemic's over, load shedding came along, and that kind of kiboshed that. And I wondered actually if Joburg's nightlife would ever return. I was driving, very boring story, but I was driving through Joburg 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning the other day. I was going to work, Dino, don't get excited. And I was amazed at how much traffic there actually was on the roads. And that takes us then to the kind of, is Joburg becoming a 24-hour city?
I absolutely think so. I can't believe the traffic on the roads. You're spot on right. And I mean, pantry is just testament to that. Even our restaurants and our eateries, Saint specifically in Sandton, it's a little bit more of a nightlife spot. After dinner, there's a bit of a vibe in the bar. I've definitely noticed after the pandemic, people come out later. There's people that only come to the bar at 12 or 12:30. Even Marble, that being said, they come for a nightcap late into the hours. Full-on 24-hour city. I think still some work to be done, but definitely there's a market for that.
Thank you very much indeed, Dino. It's been good to talk to you. I really appreciate it. Dino Constantinou is the operations manager for the Marble Group. Just interesting to watch that transition for Joburg to becoming a proper 24-hour city. I think on some sort of, I wouldn't be surprised if you look around the next 2 weekends in some places, Cape Town too, you'll see that 24-hour nature because people are going on holiday. There's that kind of traditional, the next 2 weeks, companies have their dues, their sort of Christmas parties, things like that. People are sort of saying goodbye to each other, celebrating the year, celebrating that it's over, looking forward to the next year. And that maybe just drives things a little bit towards that 24-hour nature. Let's see how it all plays out. 6 minutes now to 7 the time on The Money Show.
Stephen Grootes.
Taking your calls
on 011-883-0702.
Well, time for the Friday Biz Blitz on The Money Show. First question on the Friday Biz Blitz. You know how this works. You call us on 011-883-0702 and 021-446-0567. I put the question to you. If you get it right, we move on to the next question. If you get it wrong, well, we move on to the next caller. First question, here we go. Which French media company is set to remove CNN from DSTV after Warner Brothers Discovery has refused to agree to new terms? Which French media company is set to remove CNN from DSTV after Warner Brothers Discovery refused to agree to new terms? First question on the Friday Biz Blitz tonight.
Business Outsurance are experts in business insurance for optometrists, surgeons, and other medical specialists. Here's Chrissy.
Business Outsurance is the best insurer for my business. They have great premiums, wonderful service. I know without a doubt that Outsurance has my back, and you always get something out with Outsurance.
Switch to Business Outsurance and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. Visit outsurance.co.za. Switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
You want to build a quality home, the eye-catching jewel of the town, but your personality type is bargain hunter. It's only been 2 months and your quality home is the neighborhood nightmare. So abantu bazotini about the peeling paint that you call abstract art, the cracked walls that look like frown lines. Skip the embarrassment and the hunting. Make smarter decisions for your home. Visit Cashbuild online to order quality cement, paint, and more at the lowest prices. Cashbuild.
Small businesses are anything but small. They're the backbone of our communities, the dreamers, the doers, the ones who keep Mzansi moving forward. That's why 702 and Capitec Business Banking are putting them in the spotlight. Every Thursday between 6 and 8 p.m., catch Small Business Focus with Capitec, where we showcase the hustle, heart, and the secrets to thriving in today's economy. Your vision matters, and with Capitec, you're never building it alone. Small Business Focus with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Thursdays between 6 and 8 p.m. on 702. Capitec Bank is an authorized FSP 46669.
The Money Show, Stephen Grootes, is brought to you by ABSA CIB. Discover the latest trends shaping digital assets across Africa. Download the ABSA Africa Digital Assets Insights 2025.
The Money Show, Friday Biz Blitz.
3 minutes now to 7. First question on the Friday Biz Blitz. Which French media company is set to remove CNN from DSTV after Warner Brothers Discovery refused to agree to new terms? Let's go to Joe in Centurion. Joe, hi.
Hi, it's Canal Plus.
Did he pronounce that correctly? Yeah, I think that's fine, Joe, yes. Canal Plus Multi-Choice has announced to subscribers 12 channels under its carriage agreement from Warner Brothers Discovery, including the Discovery Channel and CNN International, will be terminated at the end of the year. Okay, second question. Joe, I hope you've been listening to The Money Show this week.
Yes.
Okay, second question on the Friday Biz Blitz. In which year was Discovery Life founded?
1999.
Oh, Joe, you are very close. I'll give you another guess. Very close. Come on.
2001.
Oh, Joe. Oh, Joe, I don't know what to say to you. I mean, very close is all I can say. Okay, 011 883 0702 and 021 446 0567. In which year was Discovery Life founded? Joe pretty much got there, kind of, but then at the last second, unfortunately, just not quite getting there. In which year was Discovery Life founded? We actually spoke to the CEO of Discovery Life this week and spoke about the history and how life insurance has changed in the last year or so. Questions to come also around social media. Questions too around Prada. We'll look at that new gold mine as well, and maybe some of our GDP figures this week. But first, we do have to get past this question, which is, in which year was Discovery Life founded? And one of those companies which has become sort of iconic, part of course, an iconic group, as you know, the Discovery Group, certainly a group that has done much to change our economy over the years. But in which year was Discovery Life founded? 011 883 0702 and 021 446 0567. Our second question on the Friday Biz Blitz tonight. In which year was Discovery Life founded? Joe kind of got us there, so it shouldn't be too hard to work out from here. But I can't give you the answer, I'm afraid. I really need you to give us the answer. And let's go to, I think we can go to Alex in Northgate. Alex, hi. Do you know the answer?
I do, yes.
What is it, Alex?
2000.
It was 2000, yes. Which country has just enforced the world's first national social media ban for people under the age of 16?
Australia.
It is Australia, yes. Which iconic Italian fashion house, famous for its Medusa logo, has just been snapped up by Prada? It's a deal worth $1.38 billion. Who's just been bought by Prada? They've got a Medusa logo.
Versace.
Versace, Alex?
Yeah.
You clearly have an eye for fashion. It is Versace.
Yes.
Which company has opened South Africa's first new underground gold mine in 15 years? We spoke to the CEO yesterday.
Oh, man.
It's a tough question, actually. You have to listen hard.
I've lost this one.
Oh, Alex. Oh, Alex. Sorry, Alex. All right, we've just got time for Boetsuarelo in Swane. What's the name of the company that opened our first new gold mine in 15 years, Boetsuarelo?
Sorry, could you please repeat the question?
Which company just opened our first new underground gold mine in 15 years?
Not Anglo. I don't know. West Mining? West Mining.
I'm sorry, Boetsuarelo, but that's not the name. The name I needed was Carla Shallows. That's the name of the company that opened the new mine. You're with the Money Show, 7 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Zingisa Chirwa. The Public Investment Corporation has defended pumping taxpayers' money into a bankrupt poultry farm, saying it had been poorly managed and has the potential to save jobs. The country's largest asset manager today received a grilling from upset members of Parliament's Standing Committee on Finance over recent questionable transactions and alleged corrupt employee conduct. Daybreak Foods has been flagged by the Auditor General for financial irregularities and governance failures, prompting MPs to probe whether public funds are being squandered on a failing enterprise. But the PIC said all corruption allegations relate